All right, what's up, people? Tuesday night. Going to give you a good breakdown today on how to handle a max event in Strongman. So, this is partially inspired by the past weekend's World Deadlift Championships. Obviously, we have Thor Bjornsson pulled a nice 510 kilo deadlift, the new all-time world record. Made it look easy, but the goal of today is to give you a little bit of a idea on how to handle max attempts when you're in the strongman competition. Okay, so we're going to give you some strategy, some tips and tricks on how to break it down. So let's just dive right in. Make sure this expo works. Okay, max outs. Okay, so first off, lift one, attempt number one. Now, there's a couple different formats that we could be seeing here, but the most common format is 3 attempts, pass or fail, right? Or you just get 3 attempts, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But always, I think this is a hard rule, whatever your format is, your first attempt needs to be something that is an absolute guarantee. I use the term, it's something you could do in your sleep, okay? So guaranteed lift. And if we want to be like specific about this, this could be like 90% or so, maybe like 92%. But when you're peaked, right, you're going to feel pretty fresh. You should be in the right state of mind so that this is like no problem. Okay, I mean, if you're a 500-pound deadlifter, you can probably hit 450, no problem, no big deal. But if you're unsure or things aren't really going your way that day, you need to make sure whatever this attempt is something you can do no matter what. Okay, so this is why. It's just like a practice and a warm-up rep to get you going and get points on the board first off, but to get you used to the live drill and live round of the competition scenario. So, you know, every platform's a little different. The staging might be a little different. It might be a bar or an environment that you're not quite used to. So to get yourself acclimated to the demands and more importantly to the judge is you need to get out there and execute to the highest degree, okay? So execute. This is with your setup, your technique, and your lift, all right? So we want to just kind of build successful evidence for ourselves and for the judge. As always, make sure you're drinking your water. But we want to build successful evidence for ourselves in our head so that when we're coming back out for the next one, we have proof that we are somebody that can succeed in this situation. So when it's time for event 2 and 3, we just do it again. But the judge, you probably don't know who's judging you. So you want to set the tone and you want to let them know that you are somebody that is able to execute to the standard, okay? This is something I talked about on my Instagram post yesterday. Go check it out if you missed it. But Evan Singleton got, honestly, it was a horrible down command on one of his attempts. But because he has a history of fucking up over and over and over and over again, you know, he gets under a little more scrutiny than everybody else. So let's say you come out and you barely hit your first attempt, man. Like it's real close. Then you're going to be under a more watchful eye the next time up because that judge is going to remember like, oh man, this guy barely got it last time. So, you know, I don't know if he's going to be able to this time. Like even if it's a pretty good, mostly relatively impartial judge, there's still like the subconscious, you know, behavior that's going to exist. He's going to remember, he or she's going to remember how you lifted that first one. So you need to be able to demonstrate that you are ready to do it like a pro. If you're coming up for that second lift and you did that first one as a professional, they will remember, okay, this person's got it figured out, so it should be fine there. They know what to do, so I'm ready to give them the pass, all right? So guaranteed, 90 to 92%. But then strategy can change a little bit for lift 2, okay? Now, there's a couple different ways to attack this. When you're going for your second lift, the first strategy is to, if you don't want to, well, let's say this a different way. The first strategy is to think of lift 2 as your PR attempt number 1, okay? So if you only get 3 attempts, right, maybe you want to give yourself 2 cracks at this lift. So I'm going to give you a real world example here. So when I did a powerlifting meet fall of 2022, my goal was a 300 kilo deadlift. Okay. So I really, really wanted to make sure I hit that. So I did 620 for my opening attempt. That's something I had done in the gym a lot. I had done it over and over. I wouldn't say over and over, but I hit 640 in the gym. So going to 620 was like a really good, safe bet for me. 620, then I went to 660, 300 kilos, and I nailed it, okay? So it went really, really well. So that was my meet PR at the time, and then I had kind of 2 different paths to choose from that. Either, I could go for my originally planned 3rd attempt of 675, but I ended up going for 700 because it felt so good, but that was only because it went so well. Now, if it didn't go well, what could happen is I give myself 2 chances to hit this important lift. So if you've got a specific number in mind, right, then maybe you want to go ahead and, take 2 attempts at it, right? So then it's just kind of judging based on you feel, like how the day is going, whether you want to move past that, right? And maybe you hit your PR here and it totally fries you, and then you're done and you don't want to take a 3rd. That's also cool. But a couple different ways to do this. Now, in a strongman competition, there's also the choice of like strategy, because a lot of times you have a rising bar where it's set weight jumps. So at Beast of the Bay, the competition that I ran about 3 weeks ago, it was 40 and 50 pound weight jumps all the way up for the men's until we got to a certain point, but whatever. So you want to maybe use those weight jumps to strategically position yourself, particularly if you're very strong, to make your competition have to go heavier and go higher. So Ricky Panjanaban, who ended up winning the deadlift at America's Strongest Man when I competed this past summer, he opened at, what would it have been, like 685, right? And then the next jump was 725. So by him having to do 725 as a 2nd attempt, it actually put the pressure on me to have to show up for my 3rd attempt and like do that in order to secure bigger points. And it made everybody kind of waterfall down, have to take a little higher attempt than they thought necessary in order to score points, because we were chasing, such a big top end number. Whether or not we were going to win, it really affected placings the whole way down. So being strategic about where you open, based on what your competitors are doing is part of the game. So if you are somebody who's starting pretty light, let's say it's like 90 to 92%, right? Or even lower, let's just say whatever, you get multiple attempts and it's 80%. Maybe you wait and see where your competition is going to do it, because if you, let's say we go 495, you and your opponent are both starting at 495 and you nail it and you're like, oh, I'm just going to jump straight to 585. You could act as if you're going to do the next jump up in line, which would be 545, and then strategically pass on that to save energy, make your opponent do it, and then show up fresh for 585. But this is really all about knowing your abilities. So, I'm speaking in a little bit of generalities here, but if we were to treat this as numbers that you could pick powerlifting style, so let's go into this direction here. Attempt 1, you want somewhere in this like 90 to 93% range. Attempt 2, you want in this like 94 to 97% range. And then 3, we want in like 98 to 104% range. Why do I say it as 104%? I'm going to turn on a light here because it's starting to get a little darker outside. Okay, so why do we want to set it up like this? A couple reasons. One, it's mental, strategies and pacing. So when I had this original plan in my powerlifting meet, I was going 620, then 660, then 675 was my plan. So there's a couple different ways to think about that. First off is, well, okay, I'm going to make a 40-pound jump on my 1st to 2nd attempt, and then I'm just going to have to make a 15-pound jump if that goes well. So you want to remember some of these mental mind games that you can play with yourself where you think, oh, I made a 40-pound jump on that first one. All I have to do is now 15 more pounds. So the jump is much less. It's going to feel much less substantial than the difference from 1 to 2. But then in the same light, I ended up actually going for 700. So I did 620, 660, 700, right? And at 700, roughly, so 70 would be 10%, 35 would be 5%. So 440 is like 6% or so. So I'm making about 6% jumps, but it was consistent jumps. So even though I made a bigger, more ambitious jump than I thought, I'm still playing this game in my head where it's like, oh, well, I made a 40-pound jump from lift 1 to lift 2, and then all I have to do is the same thing. So you want to sort of rationalize it in your mind where you have these numbers and you can frame it in a friendly, positive way of, oh, that's all I have to do is 3% more, 3% more, 3% more. You know what I'm saying? Feels good to build confidence, right? You just have to, absolutely. So you need to, with your strategy, have a strategy and plan in place that you feel good about, and then give yourself the freedom and luxury to capitalize on that if things are really going your way. Because let me tell you, there's a good chance if I really wanted to, I probably could have gone for one more big deadlift at America's Strongest Man, but I just chose not to because I had a whole bunch of other stuff going on. You know what I mean? So that's really part of the deal here. Now, other things we want to consider when we're talking about attempts and events. When you're going for lift number 1, I really think you need to be calm, okay? Calm and cool. And now, let's think once again about Evan Singleton. This is a really good example of what not to do, okay? Because this guy blows his energy all the time and does stupid shit and then blames everybody but himself. So you can score a lot of points and do really well by being very composed in these things, all right? But what this is really about is just saving your energy for where it counts, right? So maybe, you want to go for that PR on lift number 2. Or maybe, you're even going to start a little more conservative and you're going to do like an 88%, 94%, like 100% here. If you're going to ramp up and you just feel better about having 2 solid attempts on the platform, cool, calm, and then let it all out for that last final attempt. A lot of this I'm kind of relating to and thinking of like deadlifts. So thinking about how to hype ourselves up in different ways, I want you to remember that different hype and adrenaline strategies work well for different people. And it's important for you to know which strategy and which state of mind, which level of adrenaline you can tap into to be successful. I know personally for me, overhead pressing, I need to be a lot more focused and, using a lot of caffeine and hyping up and being real pumped and aggressive does not get the job done because I need to pay a little bit more attention to my technique and my positioning. However, when it's time to do things such as deadlifts, for me, I can, at the last minute, like really, really crank it up. And I try to be very careful with this. I used to be somebody who'd be screaming around like, all over the place, screaming before I even walk up to the bar. But, now it's just much more internal where, I start saying things in my head. I will mouth some words to me, but it's usually like collected and some pieces of confidence before I'm going in. You got this. You got this. I always say the time is now. You've trained for this. You can do it. There's all these things that I'm running in my head. And then when it's time to strap in, then I'll let out a little couple grunts, couple screams. But it's really only in those immediate seconds before the lift. So when I can conserve my energy for the first 2 lifts and channel it all into the important one of the day, I'm going to have a chance to be a lot more successful. But you have a gas tank with this stuff. You can only expel out a certain amount of energy. It's just like the same as your muscles, right? You can pump and pump and pump for so long, but then at some point you hit the wall and you flatline, and you just work into fatigue and exhaustion. Well, the same thing happens with your mental and energetic state. You can only put out so much adrenaline before you just fall flat. Very true. It's just how it goes. So don't forget, hydrate. Got to make sure I'm staying hydrated. I got a big day, big training day tomorrow. So let's make sure we're getting after it. So there's really a lot of different ways to approach this, but I think the most important takeaway on all of this is that your attempt number one is that it's got to be something that's a guarantee, and you need to treat it as just another order of business. Showing up, this is what you do. This ain't nothing to it. And if you're opening, there's a guy, America's Strongest Man, who opened up with his PR, and it was hard. Wow, that was the wrong move, my guy. That was the wrong move. But anyways, you just want to set yourself up for success. You want to build confidence in the moment, in the day. And then also some of these things too. Let's say you're not peaked very well. You could be sick. You didn't hydrate well enough. You didn't eat well. You're going to have some good signals, here and there if you need to course correct and change action, because maybe you do need to hype up a little bit more. Maybe, you're really not feeling so hot and you need to use some other extremes. Like, I do not typically use smelling salts, but when I'm having, big dump of adrenaline, or I'm just feeling really fatigued, then I will use that. So if I go into, let's just say I were to go into an event, a lift one, I was like, man, I feel tired. Then I would go get some salts, use them because I knew I needed to do that to take myself up. Or maybe I would just go put on some certain music or headphones or whatever, right? So the other thing we want to think about with all of these attempts is, even though we're ramping up and getting heavier and heavier and heavier, is just like a free throw routine. You really want to have a system in place that you just get yourself into some sort of rhythm. And this is also different for everybody, and I invite you to find your own. But, mine's very simple. I strap in, and I give it a good yank 1, 2, and then brace down 3 and pull. I like that for several reasons. One, it helps me feel the tension in the brace that I need to get with my whole backside, my arms to my lats, my position on the bar, everything. So it's a good physical reinforcement, but I also just, it's an easy 3, 2, 1. I don't do 3, 2, 1. I go 1, 2, 3, boom, So that's it. It's just a rhythm and a routine. And what that does is it allows you to kind of fall back on all the training and the practice and the good repetitions you have done to take you out of the moment in a good way and put you in to the focus that you need to be. So if you're just kind of falling into a successful rhythm and routine, then you're not going to worry about, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people watching me. I don't know how many people were watching me, on the stream for OSG or America's Strongest Man, probably hundreds. I don't know. Even if not, let's say it was 50. There's 50 to 100 people just standing right in your grill watching you. It might make you a little bit more tense. Not everybody, but, it would just get you out of your head and into a comfort zone to be in your routine or rhythm. So whatever it is, I encourage you to find one and get in it. So, guys, this is kind of just a quick overview on how to deal with max attempts. Good, I just kind of open it up. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to field some. A little short and sweet tonight, but thought this was a relevant topic. An interesting one to dive into that, 60-second reel or short just doesn't exactly cover sufficiently. So that's what I got for you. Join clubstrongman.com, as always. #1 online private strongman community. So, guys, you got about 30 seconds. If you have any questions, fire away. I'm all yours, man. I'm all yours. Let me know what you're thinking. Ask me questions about max outs. Ask me events about any event coming up. Ask me a question about Thor or Evan Singleton. I don't care. Anything you got, guys. And if nothing, that's cool too. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. So, all right, guys, that is a wrap for tonight. Thanks for joining me. going to be ramping up these topics a little bit more, so I have a little bit more to dive in on. But I appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for more. Like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. Stay strong.